good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Market Street in Corning, and we have a lot to cover. We are, of course, going to discuss the federal judge temporarily blocking any deployment of the National Guard to Portland. We've got some updates on Illinois as well as Trump prepares to send the National Guard to Illinois. J.B. Pritzker, not overly thrilled by that prospect, but we are going to talk about that. But we have a lot of catch up to do from over the weekend. Some story after story after story of updates that there will be no way to segue through. We'll just go right with it because we've got to get you all the news. By the way, everybody who had such nice words to say and come up and talk with me at the Tri-County Republican dinner, what a blast. We had a fun time. Thank you to everybody stopping over and saying such nice things about the show, like Karen at the end of Friday's broadcast. I just missed it. I didn't have a chance to read this, but it's just too good not to read. So here we go. Starting off with another week of great shows. Thanks, Frank. An example of what real news reporting looks like. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. We did have a great week last week. And that greatness continues. How about that? This morning we're going to talk with the Corning Rotary Club about their upcoming Oktoberfest celebration this Saturday. We've got some other guests lined up throughout the week. I'll let you know about that. All right, comment from a different viewer. This coming in late yesterday. Giants and Jets not doing well at this time, 3:30. Anyway, just wanted to say that wouldn't it be not only hypocritical, but funny in a sinister way, that the fake news organizations of ABC, NBC, and CBS moved out of New York because the costs involved were becoming too expensive due to the biased single-party rule here in New York State. Wishful thinking, I suppose. It's got to be a consideration when you start to talk about the cost. Now, of course, we've mentioned the Hollywood freebies that we as taxpayers pay for, where we subsidize, I guess, Saturday Night Live, who will never leave New York. We subsidize all these various television programs with our tax dollars, hoping that they won't leave New York when they never have an intention to leave New York. It's a waste of money. Comment from Mark. Mark writes in this morning, good morning. Well, good morning to you, Mark. Got some great deals at Hesselson's tent sale. Absolutely. Hesselson's, the tent sale, I know is now over. If you missed it, you missed a good one. I got most of my Christmas shopping done. That tent sale, I look forward to it every year. You don't even need to be a hunter necessarily to find great deals. It does help, but there's a lot of nice pullover like vests and long johns, which who can't use long johns? I almost wanted to put some on this morning, even if you aren't a hunter. But yes, the Hesselson's, another huge success. So thank you, as always, to Hesselson's for being the sponsor of our studio, but also for the great deals we all got last week. Oh, and I got a great picture. I'm going to post this here from a viewer. Look at this. Beautiful picture they took of the moon. Now, this is not officially the hunter's moon or the super moon, but it's pretty darn close. What we learned, beautiful picture. Sometimes it's hard to take a picture of the moon. It always looks so beautiful, and then you take the picture and it doesn't work out. Well, the actual peak illumination of the full moon is going to be tonight. The evening of October 6th, look up and be amazed as the full moon is bigger and brighter because it's a super moon. This evening, the moon could appear to be about 30% brighter and up to 14% larger than a typical full moon. This year's October full moon, known as the Hunter's Moon, will also shine as a powerful supermoon. A supermoon occurs when the moon reaches the closest point to its orbit to Earth, making it appear bigger, brighter, and more radiant than a typical full moon. According to NASA, this Hunter's Moon kicks off a rare series of 3 consecutive autumn supermoons, promising an especially striking night sky. So there you are. That was a beautiful picture. But look again tonight to see the full supermoon. Okay. Oh, I thought it was frozen there for a moment. So the federal judge did temporarily block any deployment of the National Guard to Portland. We'll be talking about this more in depth, but because it is a breaking story happening late last night, early this morning, a federal judge temporarily blocked the Trump administration from sending any National Guard troops to Portland, a ruling which came as the administration stepped up its attempts to send out-of-state National Guard troops to the city after the judge earlier denied mobilizing Oregon National Guard troops. Shortly before a Sunday evening hearing prompted by President Trump's mobilization of the California National Guard to Portland, Trump also ordered the deployment of hundreds of Texas National Guard members to Illinois, Oregon, and, quote, other locations in the U.S. U.S. District Judge Karen Emmergut, a Trump appointee, voiced skepticism towards the administration's argument to deploy the National Guard from the state of the hearing, expressing frustration over what she characterized as an apparent attempt to sidestep her original Saturday order. Addressing Deputy Assistant Attorney General Eric Hamilton late Sunday, she said, "Mr. Hamilton, you are an officer of the court. Aren't the defendants simply circumventing my order?" The tense hearing, which lasted less than 30 minutes, saw Emmergut press the Justice Department lawyer, occasionally interrupting him to insist he answer her question directly. So that's your quick update. We're going to dive into it more in depth, what was said, but I wanted to break that story to you this morning if you had not already seen. We've got a couple media updates we're going to get to. As I said, there's a lot here that there's just no segueing to, a lot of things that I think just pose questions I really love to hear your opinions on. First, because this is so rare, and I'm not going to get too in-depth with it, but I think it'll pique many of your interests. I found it, I believe, on Drudge Report this morning. We already know the answer to the question, but because this is coming from the media, I thought, well, it's worth mentioning. Does God exist? Modern science shows he must, according to a best-selling author. A book by two French authors that challenges a long-standing academic consensus is being published in Britain next week. According to a new book, a great reversal is underway. Science, authors argue, and I always have trouble with that word, authors argue over 580 pages, has come full circle and forcefully put the question of the existence of a creator, God, back on the table. Was it ever off? Well, in the science publications, of course, they were skeptical. In a striking challenge to the academic consensus, two French authors argue that the latest scientific theories led to only one logical conclusion: an all-powerful deity created the universe and all life within it. Their argument has already gained traction. The French edition of their book, God, the Science, the Evidence, published back in 2021, and subsequent translations in Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese, has sold more than 400,000 copies. The English edition, which will be published next week, has had an initial print run of 110,000, Just something interesting. You can find that for yourself. Not a surprise on our end, but not something you would normally see in academia. So I thought you would like me to pass that along to you. All right, as I mentioned, there's no way to segue through a couple of these stories, so please bear with me. Here's the question I ask for you. As many of you may have stayed up a little bit late to watch, unfortunately, New England beat the Buffalo Bills. Well, 3 years and $850 million later, did taxpayers get a good deal on the new Bills Stadium? If you are a longtime viewer of this program, when we first started, this was a conversation we were having because it was a major story. But when the deal to pay for the Buffalo Bills Stadium was revealed in March of 2022, supporters said the agreement protected taxpayers' interests while keeping the team in one of the league's smallest markets for decades to come. But critics have pounced on its $850 million in public funding, the largest payout for any National Football League stadium up to that point. Funding from the state and Erie County made up 61% of the cost of what was then a new $1.4 billion stadium in Orchard Park. In the 3.5 years since, however, more than a half dozen other NFL communities have reached or are negotiating new stadium deals of their own. Some will require public investment of over $1 billion, while other teams say they'll be fully financing the stadium construction. At the same time, the price tag for the Bills Stadium, scheduled to be substantially completed in July of 2026, has soared more than $2.1 billion, with the team picking up all the cost overruns. It's dropped the public funding portion of the project by over 20%. If the financial agreement for the new stadium was a Bills draft selection, we would know by now whether the pick was a success or a bust. So it's time to ask the same question. In hindsight, how well has it aged? Neil DeMause, an authority on sports stadium financing and the author of the book Field of Schemes, says, it is no longer as sort of world historically awful. So it's not world historically awful anymore. But I don't know that there's so much as it looks better or the other deals look worse. So your thoughts? Good use of taxpayers' dollars. The new Bills Stadium, $850 million in taxpayer subsidies 3.5 years later. Okay, we have a couple of updates on public safety that we're going to get to. This kind of dangerous rhetoric tied in with some media updates, and then we're going to get, and the Navy's 250th birthday celebration from over the weekend. We'll be talking about that as well. And then the National Guard, a major topic, and the government shutdown. Remember, the government is in a shutdown, in case you have forgotten. If you watched the Sunday programs, I'd love to hear from you what you thought, what the rhetoric was. We know that Chuck Schumer is trying to spin this as somehow the Republicans' fault. I think it's a hard sell, but the media is definitely trying to play defenders of the Democrats. Is it sticking? Is it working? It depends on which polling outlet you go to, how biased the polling outlet is. So we'll talk about that. Before we get into public safety, let me just bring this up because we talk about the threats on our Second Amendment rights, and we talk about kind of this hatred for our Second Amendment rights by those in Hollywood, by those in the media. I found this fascinating. Here we go. Because I know we have a lot of James Bond fans out there. Amazon Prime has excited spy movie fans by relaunching all James Bond films, okay? But fans have also noticed a very odd thing about the poster Amazon is using to celebrate the actors who have starred in the franchise. So they'll promote it by the actors that each play James Bond with a movie poster. All of their guns from the movie poster have been, or are missing, have been, I guess, photoshopped out. All of their guns. This is a very important part of the James Bond series. To hail the return of the 007 catalog of films, Amazon put out a graphic featuring a thumbnail image of every Bond film and the actors starring in them. But some fans noticed that there is something off about some of the photos. It turns out that a few of the photos originally showed the actor holding his trusty semi-automatic pistol or some other firearm in his hand. But in the Amazon poster, the guns have been removed from the image, leaving 007's hands posed in an odd position, or in some cases, such as in the image for Spectre, Amazon just cropped the pistol out of the photo entirely. They did the same thing with smoking. If you recall, they started erasing with musicians and films photos where the actor or musician had a cigarette. One of the most famous ones that I recall, and I talked about it a long time on the radio, was Robert Johnson, kind of the blues legend. So many people have stolen, if you will, his sound. Famous photo. There's only a couple of photos known to exist of him. One of them famously has a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. When they released his, I guess you'd call it best of, he didn't have that many songs to begin with. Just majorly influential. They had photoshopped out that cigarette. So here we have Amazon Prime taking away, erasing that part of history, taking the gun out of James Bond's hands. That's a little bit, I would argue, of that woke culture that's still not completely gone away. Yeah, it's not as fashionable or popular, the woke culture, but obviously still very prevalent. So I don't think you'll hear that in the mainstream media. That's why I wanted to bring it up to you. All right, a couple public safety updates, a couple other things that we're not going to be able to segue through. Let me know what you think about everything going on. There's also Israel and Hamas, that conversation that we may have an opportunity to get to. Here's a question. We're going to get to the piece a little bit later on. But the New York Post editorial board said, Mr. President, nix the tariff dividend checks and shrink the deficit instead. Your thoughts? He was talking, the president, about maybe because of the tariffs, giving giving you $1,000 to $2,000. Your thoughts on that, or would you rather see it go to pay down the national debt? But let's take a short break. Running late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. I hope if you are a wine glass marathon runner, I hope you're healing up. I hope you're feeling well. Sounds like it was quite an event here on Sunday. Congratulations to everybody who participated. All right, comment from viewers. Good morning. If the state will build me a new house, I would be willing to support it building the Bills a new home stadium. That's a fair point. Very fair point. Also, shrink the debt in reference to the tariff rebate checks. Instead of a rebate check, shrink the debt and lower the cost of food and energy. Thank you very much. Okay, this is interesting. If you remember the horrific story of the stabbing of that Ukrainian refugee, Irina Zaruska. Well, sweeping criminal justice reforms will be named in honor of her, and it has been signed into law by North Carolina's governor, raising the chances that her alleged murderer could face the death penalty by firing squad. House Bill 307, dubbed Irina's Law, was overwhelmingly approved by both chambers in the Tar Heel State's legislature, where Republicans hold a majority. It was then rubber-stamped by the Democrat Governor Josh Stein on Friday. The bill includes an amendment that could allow North Carolina to resume capital punishment, including by firing squad. Lethal injection is currently the only authorized method of execution in the state. The provision would also bypass legal challenges that have paused execution in the state since 2006. In addition, the legislation would require death penalty appeals to be heard within 2 years of filing. The state currently has 122 inmates on death row. Wow. The sweeping reforms will also see certain violent offenders denied cashless bail and will limit a judge's authority over pre-trial release, while requiring more defendants to undergo mental health evaluations. These evaluations could become mandatory if a defendant charged with a violent offense has been involuntarily committed in the past 3 years. The Carlos Brown Jr., the suspect in Zaruska's killing, was arrested several times prior to the shocking August stabbing. He had been released on cashless bail most recently. And we had hoped that would create a conversation here in New York. It has not. Governor Hochul and the one-party rule in Albany seem very happy with cashless bail. I know they call it bail reform. 6 of one, half dozen of another. But the alleged cold-blooded killer suffered from mental health issues for which he had previously been admitted to the hospital, according to police. Brown now faces federal and state charges and could receive the death penalty if convicted. Governor Stein said in a video statement, House Bill 307, or Irina's Law, alerts the judiciary to take a special look at people who may pose unusual risks of violence before determining their bail. That's a good thing, and why I've signed it into law. The Democrat governor, who previously served as North Carolina's Attorney General, had previously raised concerns about the bill's amendment to allow execution by firing squad. Republicans, however, defended the firing squad provision. New Hanover County Republican Chairman John Hinnant said the capital punishment by firing squad is not a new concept. There have been so many challenges to medical capital punishment versus the gas chamber. Science is constantly changing, but one thing that hasn't changed in science is what happens with the firing squad. I think we need to make the results and the punishment real. People need to know they're going to feel it. While it's an old practice, it's been deemed reliable as a deterrent. So there is an update. Now, we talked about last week that father of that young girl that was murdered in cold blood, when he was at that hearing, and the one Democrat representative actually pointed to Zaruska as calling her his daughter, which of course wasn't his daughter. His anguished words in Washington have put a spotlight on a tragedy that many Americans say reflect their worst fears. A justice system that repeatedly frees dangerous repeat offenders until it's too late, which is exactly what we're dealing with here in New York. So many victims. We talked about this with Sheriff Allard last week. So many victims that need not be victims because of our bail reform laws. Stephen Frederico's daughter, Logan, was murdered in her sleep. We had mentioned it last week. But what has shocked and outraged many is not only the brutality of the crime, but court documents revealing Dickey's 39 arrests. That's the man being charged, Alexander Devontae Dickey. He had been arrested 39 times and 25 felony charges before the cold-blooded murder. 25 felony charges, folks. Yet he had spent barely 600 days in jail over the past decade. Federico saying he should have been in jail for over 140 years for all the crimes he committed. He was committing 2.65 crimes a year since he was 15 years old. But nobody could figure out that he couldn't be rehabilitated? Well, you'd have to put him in prison to see if he could be rehabilitated. Isn't that the idea of prison? There are more people fighting for the rights of a career criminal than fighting for the rights of my daughter to be safe. And remember, he spoke in front of the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Federal Government Surveillance. We mentioned that last week. That was early last week. It turned tense when Representative Deborah Ross, a Democrat from North Carolina, mistakenly referred to a photo of Logan as the Ukrainian commuter Zaruska, prompting Stephen to correct her sharply. "This is my daughter, Logan Frederico. How dare you not know her?" he said at the time. Following the hearing, Frederico told Fox News Digital, "Honestly, it was a little different direction than I thought it was going to go with certain members of the committee. I worked for days with my team developing what I really wanted to say and had some really good stuff written out. But when Miss Ross kind of really set a fire in me, the whole complexity of my speech went totally ad-lib to nothing but the feeling of what I had in my heart and the kind of fury I had. I really felt how unimportant both Logan and Irana were to her. I thought it was really sad. Not only did she not know who Logan was, but she didn't do her homework, and she didn't even know what Irina looked like. That changed everything." Now, Federico says he is determined to turn his grief into action. He's calling for federal Logan's Law that would mandate communication between counties, force prosecutors to account for repeat offenders, and close loopholes that allow criminals like Dickey to slip back onto the streets. Quote, "I'm hoping for the federal Logan's Law or Logan's Act combined with a lot of different things. But if you start with it federally, it goes down to the state. Counties don't talk. You can't go in and arrest somebody and see that he's got 40 crimes in 2 states. They only look at the crime he's committed at the time. They don't do their homework," he said. So just an update on that story. The grieving father vows action after the repeat offender allegedly murdered his daughter. And those are the same type of policies, the cashless bail, the bail reform that we have in New York State. Couple other quick updates, couple of kind of weird stories. Not weird stories, different stories from over the weekend. We're going to get to when we come back, read your comments. Don't forget, in the 7 o'clock hour, we'll be talking with Corning Rotary. Stu Samus will be our guest, telling us about the October Feast this Saturday from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. at the skating rink in Corning's Civic Center. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. Mark writes in, "I see Trump is considering giving $10 billion to bail out farmers affected by tariffs." Yes, CNN reporting that he's considering this massive bailout, about at least $10 billion as the kind of the trade war, the tariff situation has affected them so greatly, using the money from the tariffs. So that's really all that we know is the consideration of it. We'll find out more, I'm sure, as things unfold. Comment from a different viewer. "I think criminals should be punished in the same way in which they murdered their victim. For example, if you stab someone to death, then you are exterminated by getting stabbed to death." Thank you very much. And a comment here. "Judges who let criminals go free should be held accountable." Yes, there's a lot of talks about that during, of course, that story now, especially with that father, the grieving father, learning that he had the alleged murderer had, 29 felonies? Numbers never stick in my head, but how many did I say? 25 felonies. And then you look at Zaruska and that person's criminal record, the alleged murderer there. So yes, judges should be held accountable when they let these people go. The laws should change to reflect safety, public safety, instead of coddling criminals like we have here in New York State and so many other states. I had to mention this real quick because we talk about academia so often. What a weird story coming out over the weekend. A visiting professor at Harvard Law School has been placed on administrative leave after allegedly firing a pellet rifle outside a Brookline synagogue on the eve of Yom Kippur. Carlos Portugal Gouveia, 43 years old, was arrested after police said he fired 2 shots near Temple Beth Zion on Beacon Street, in which he later claimed he was, quote, hunting rats. Investigators do not believe that Gouveia was targeting the synagogue, but he was charged in Brookline District Court with illegally discharging a pellet gun, disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace, and malicious damage of personal property. You could only imagine the optics of that, of what, I don't know if he was trying to scare and intimidate those at the synagogue. Harvard said that he has been placed on administrative leave as the school seeks to learn more about this matter. 2 private security guards working at the synagogue reportedly confronted him after hearing 2 loud shots and spotting him holding a pellet rifle. When the guards approached, Gouveia allegedly set down the gun before a brief physical struggle broke out as they tried to detain him. Police said Gouveia then ran into his nearby residence before emerging moments later, where he was handcuffed and arrested. Officers later discovered a shattered car window and a pellet lodged inside the vehicle. So it sounds like there's a little bit more there than just, quote, hunting rats. Andrea Pizer says that a Harvard Law School visiting professor shot a potentially lethal pellet rifle twice near a Brookline synagogue on the eve of Yom Kippur. Then the overeducated alleged firearms enthusiast physically resisted guards attempting to detain him. And when authorities caught up with the shooter at his residence, he offered the novel excuse for unloading the weapon ahead of the Jewish Day of Atonement. He said he was hunting rats, seriously, in a residential neighborhood outside Boston, at a house of God just ahead of one of the holiest days of the Jewish calendar. Jews at worship terrorized by a professor who runs a think tank in his native Brazil focused on social and environmental justice. The frightening incident unfolded Wednesday when 2 private security guards working at the temple, as I mentioned, heard the shots. There was that brief physical struggle. Then they had the window that was found shattered. Gouveia is a Harvard Law School alumni who earned a doctorate from the university in 2008 and also serves as an associate professor at the University of Sao Paulo Law School in Brazil. He was arraigned Thursday, charged with illegally discharging a pellet gun, disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace, and malicious damage of personal property. He pleaded not guilty to all. Adding outrage to injury, a judge then sent the shooter on his way on his own recognizance. Despite the close call with violence, no bail was set. Gouveia was simply instructed to come back to court in early November. As of now, Gouveia has been fired from Harvard Law. He has not been fired from Harvard Law. He has been placed on administrative leave as the school seeks to learn more about this matter. I suppose the worshiping public will just have to take comfort in the fact that the professor was a lousy shot. Will he be next time? Why aren't Jews adequately protected from potential harm? Synagogue attacks are serious business. On Thursday, 2 men were killed and 3 others seriously injured after a man drove into pedestrians near a synagogue near Manchester, England, and began stabbing people with a knife before being shot dead by police. Meanwhile, the administration of President Donald Trump has accused Harvard of failing to protect Jews and Israeli students from harassment and threatening to withdraw billions in federal funding unless major reforms were enacted. Harvard has countered with a lawsuit challenging the legality of the government's action, even as both sides near a possible settlement. But Harvard's blasé attitude towards the latest incident demonstrates that it's business as usual. We need answers now. If nothing else, was it an intimidation tactic? What was the reasoning? No one was hunting rats. And if you were, why was a window shot out? We need more answers. Well, tying that in with kind of the intimidation there of Jewish synagogue worshipers. We also have, I don't know if you saw this, obviously with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, so many have called for the toning down of rhetoric. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. In many instances, the rhetoric has only grown from those on the left. This is a little bit different, but I still think worth mentioning. Virginia Democrat Attorney General, hopefully he's running for it, Jay Jones is being pressured to drop out of the race after text messages revealed he apparently fantasized about a Republican lawmaker being fatally shot. In a social media post on Saturday, Governor Glenn Youngkin called on Jones for the text messages he is accused of sending in 2022 that showed him wishing a now former State House Speaker Todd Gilbert and his children would be killed, according to the New York Post. Youngkin wrote, "This violent, disgusting rhetoric targeted an elected official and his children. It is beyond disqualifying." Jay Jones said that Gilbert got 2 bullets to the head and then hoped his children would die. Read those words again. There is no "gosh, I'm sorry" here. Jones doesn't have the morality or character to drop out of this race, and his running mate Abigail Spanberger and Gazelle Hashmi and every elected Democrat in Virginia don't have the courage to call on him to step away from his campaign in disgrace. J.D. Vance, Speaker Johnson have both called on Virginia Democrat Attorney General candidate Jay Jones to withdraw from the race. Vance posting, "The Democrat candidate for Attorney General in Virginia has been fantasizing about murdering his political opponents in private messages. I'm sure the people hyperventilating about sombrero memes will join me in calling for the very deranged person to drop out of this race." Yeah, I understand that Hakeem Jeffries was complaining about that more over the weekend. Speaker Johnson adding, "These text messages are plainly disqualifying for anyone who aspires to public office. There's no conceivable justification for wishing violence against a political opponent and their children. Mr. J. Jones should immediately withdraw his candidacy, save himself and his party from further embarrassment, and take some time to reflect." Now, in a Truth Social post, Trump referenced that report about those text messages when he endorsed the GOP candidate for Attorney General. Where's the exact here? It has come to my attention that radical left lunatic Jay Jones, who is running against Jason Miyares, the great Attorney General in Virginia, made sick and demented jokes, if they were jokes at all, which were not funny, and that he wrote down and sent around to people concerning the murdering of a Republican legislator, his wife, and their children. Trump continued to criticize the Democrat gubernatorial candidate, Abigail Spanberger, for being weak and ineffective and refusing to acknowledge what Jones had done. Every Democrat, even Democrats, are saying it is resignation from campaign territory. Democrat Jay Jones should drop out of the race immediately, and the people of Virginia must continue to have a great Attorney General in Jason Miyares, who, by the way, has my complete and total endorsement. Jason will never let you down. That's a quick update on a story, and this is going to tie in. We're going to go back-to-back, piggyback here on just a couple things about the Democrat Party. We are going to talk, and a little bit here about the media, 6 of one, half dozen another, of course. But then we're going to talk about the Navy's 215th birthday celebration, and then, of course, the National Guard. As a judge, no surprise, a judge has temporarily blocked the use of, National Guard troops in Portland. We'll be talking about that later on. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. The Frankly Speaking roof cam. Looks like maybe some cleanup there from the wine glass going on. What a beautiful view. Thank you to Boss Security for being the sponsor of our roof cam. Okay, we are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. I thought this was a very good point. Doctors are held accountable for medical mistakes. Yeah, medical malpractice. They lose licenses and are jailed. Judges should be held accountable when criminals commit serious crimes. If they are let go, like we've seen in so many instances, like with Cassius bail. What was the stabbing? It was just basically, promise me you'll return to court. Unbelievable. Did you see over the weekend, just as we were talking about the Democrat Party before we went to break, did you see, and I do have a couple updates on it, Bill Maher, what he said about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has that new book out, or is about to come out, 107 Days. Bill Maher said it should have been called Everyone Stinks But Me. She only had 107 days to win. Yeah, and $1.5 billion and a built-in army of about 75 million people who'd vote for any human-adjacent life form that wasn't Trump. He's right. She received endorsement from A-list celebrities and the backing of several former presidents. Harris lost both the Electoral College and the popular vote to President Trump while accumulating approximately $20 million of debt. In 107 days, nothing is Kamala's fault, Bill Maher said. Biden let her down by not stepping down sooner, pouty face emoji. He's right. It does seem like a way for her to blame everyone else from what we've seen so far. Now, in the memoir, we learned that the presidential hopeful contacted the blue state leader, Gavin Newsom, for an endorsement, but Newsom said he was hiking and never returned the phone call. Ooh. He was asked for his endorsement, but text back, hiking, will call back, but then never did. And then he didn't even ask her to the prom, Bill Maher joked. Harris also revealed that Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg was her first choice as her running mate instead of Tim Walz, but said that the country wasn't ready for both a black female president and a gay vice president. Buttigieg would have been an ideal partner if I were a straight white man, Harris wrote. Bill Maher said America itself let Kamala down by not being ready for the running mate she really wanted, Pete Buttigieg. So she stuck with the Home Depot paint salesman, and the rest is herstory. Poor Kamala, we made her the star of a rom-com and didn't even give her a gay best friend, meaning Buttigieg. So that was Bill Maher's reaction. He also said it's like a scene from Bridget Jones Runs for President. As Harris recalled, platters of cupcakes decorated with the words Madam President for the election watch party, but the ill-fated decorations were removed by an aide before they were handed out to losing campaign staffers. The host also chided his own talk show television colleagues at The View for being quiet about Jimmy Kimmel's 3-day suspension. Bill Maher said it wasn't a good look for the women party that all the guys were speaking out for Jimmy Kimmel when Trump went after him, except on the women's show, where for 5 days the outspoken hosts were suddenly as quiet as could be. Then on the 5th day, they rose and said, no one silences us. Well, no one had to. You silenced yourself. 5 days? Talk about needing extra time to get ready. So that's Bill Maher. I thought that was interesting as we've talked about Kamala Harris's book. Now, we also learned, since that is media, well, did you see Joy Reid? Quickly. Ex-MSNBC host, not even good enough to be on low-rated MSNBC, Joy Reid, went on a profanity-laced tirade against J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, since you're paying attention to me, blank you, she raved during an interview. The rant, delivered on writer Tommy Christopher's Substack, came after Vance took to X, arguing or urging Reid to be more grateful for her success. Joy Reid, this is what J.D. Vance said, Joy Reid has had such a good life in this country. It's been overwhelmingly kind and gracious to her. She is far wealthier than most, yet she oozes with contempt. My honest, non-trolling advice to Joy Reid is that you'd be a much happier person if you showed a little gratitude. So that's why Joy Reid said blank you to J.D. Vance. I don't want to go through all this. What Reid said, because she's not really relevant. So it's not really necessary. It's just this idea that everything is cussing. And, of course, calling him a racist blank, believing that black people are given opportunity by white people. I guess that's what she took away from that comment. There's no wonder. Well, she said, so you can't accept that my mother, who became a PhD-holding college professor, earned her opportunity to be a professor. You know, that someone white gave her that opportunity. You know, Charlie Kirk's version is she stole from somebody white. Wow, the idea that they have to bring up Charlie Kirk goes to show you how really full of hatred they are. We've got a couple other media updates, and then we are going to get into, there's so much to get to. I pose the question again, nix the tariffs, the tariff dividend checks, and shrink the deficit instead. That's what the New York Post says. What are your thoughts? Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I just saw that the Nobel Peace Prize winner will be announced this Friday. Do you think Trump's name is on that list? You know my thoughts on this if you watch the program, that no, he will not be considered. By the way, President Trump is reportedly in talks with CBS News to do an interview with 60 Minutes, the same show he sued over their interview with Harris that was deceptively edited. The White House is demanding that CBS News air the interview with Trump unedited. Bill Whitaker, the 60 Minutes correspondent who conducted the Harris interview that led to the parent company Paramount paying Trump a $16 million sum to settle the lawsuit, will handle the segment with the president. White House officials initially discussed a sit-down last Friday while Trump was in New York for the UN General Assembly and the Ryder Cup, but the timetable slipped due to the president's schedule, according to Semaphore. The Post has sought comment from the White House and parent company Paramount Skydance. CBS News declined to comment. So that'll be an interesting one. We look forward to seeing what that sit-down interview with 60 Minutes will look like. I'm sure it will not be with kid gloves like the Harris interview. Also, since we're talking media, Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization, their spokesman, Andrew Colvett, said he's relieved that Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air, not because he agrees with the ABC hosts, but because he believes cancellation would have made the liberal comic a martyr. Now, remember, Jimmy Kimmel's trying to blame, quote unquote, MAGA for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. He's never apologized. He had, 3 days, basically a long weekend off. And this is somehow still relevant, but I agree with Andrew Colvett from Turning Point that it would have made him a martyr. I don't want Jimmy Kimmel to be a martyr. He doesn't deserve it. He's a liar. He's an unrepentant liar. But he should not be considered a martyr by anyone. Colvett said that some of the messaging from the FCC was well-intentioned, but muddied the water and allowed liberals to rally around Kimmel in the name of free speech. I would agree with that. What I hope happens is that this has so tarnished his legacy and his trust that's held by the audience that this is going to work itself out over time. It's important when people lie, and they lie in that type of setting and that platform about such a huge event, that there are real consequences. And I think the best consequences would be that people just tune out. People refuse to watch a liar on TV, and that when the ratings come up and the P&L statement, profit and loss, ABC reviews it, and they just say, hey, this isn't worth continuing. When that happens, I don't think he's going to be able to blame us for it. I think he's just going to have to blame himself and his own choices. And when that happens, I'm not going to be sad about it, Colvett said. He also hasn't been bothered by a lot of the media coverage since Kirk was assassinated. He feels, quote, the most disappointing thing has been this narrative that it's both sides, and the notion that political violence is equally as extreme, whether it's on the far right or the left. I think that's why I keyed in on the Jimmy Kimmel saga, because he tried to lie to his audience and tell us that it was actually somebody from the right that killed Charlie, and that's just simply not true. There's no facts that back that up, and that strikes me as a really fundamental problem here. Because if you feel you can go onto your platform and lie brazenly, that says that you don't care about us as humans. That tells me that you think that we are worth smearing, slandering, lying about, and dehumanizing people. And that's how we get the violence in the first place. There you are. Thought that was nice. Okay. Again, the question, well, we'll get to it when we come back. That'll be the next thing. About the tariff dividend checks. I'll read that piece to you. But why? We got a lot of comments coming in. Oh, and some waves. Keep them coming in, and we'll be right back. Frankly speaking, did you run in the wine glass? If you did, I'd love to hear from you. We heard from Mark, who had got great deals at the Hesselson's tent sale. That's an update from last week. We got a couple updates. In the next hour, we'll be talking with Corning Rotary about their upcoming October feast. So you want to stay tuned for that. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live. Wrapping up hour number one, Mark writes in, as far as Kamala Harris, she or any Democrat had no chance to win the election, as Americans were sick of being broke. And don't forget, Republicans were called garbage. That struck with me. Yeah, a lot of horrible, horrible names. You're exactly right. I'm with you. I don't think it would have mattered who else they picked. But man, Kamala Harris was a bad pick. But the voters had no say from the Party of Democracy. Comment from a different viewer. Just curious, daylight savings time or not? Well, if you're asking me, will we have to change our clocks? Yes, we will. Nothing's been done. I would love to see, set it and forget it. I would love to see it go away myself, personally. I know the language is a standard time, whatever. You know what I mean. I don't even care if we meet in the middle and do a half an hour and then just call it a day, or if we do the full hour. But yes, I'm over daylight savings time, or we'll put it as the switching of the clocks, the time change. I'm very much over that, like so many others, but I don't think for whatever reason it's going to go anywhere. I hope I'm wrong, but it always normally happens when people are tired those first couple of weeks after, and then, or their whole system has changed, and that's when you normally hear politicians say, we have to change it, and then nothing's done. I don't know if it's because we forget after a little while, or if it's just not an issue they deem worth taking up. But I'm not a big fan of it, the time change. Your thoughts? Coming from Ken. Ken writes in, I laugh like heck when Brennan was interviewing Chuck Schumer on Deface the Nation. Schumer said that Mike Johnson is just pushing fake lies regarding the government shutdown. I'm not a wordsmith, but wouldn't a fake lie be a double negative and actually mean Johnson was telling the truth? Yeah. It would, right? I assume Schumer is proud of himself pushing real lies. That's a very good point. Yes, I see Chuck Schumer. Well, he's trying. He's trying to be the face of the resistance. He's got to be seen as fighting. He knows that a government shutdown is not good for him and his party, but it's more about him, right? He's worried about apparently a primary and running again, but also he's worried about popularity. Here's a guy that's always had pretty high polling numbers, always been someone the media and others go to as a leader. And then when they started talking about taking away his leadership position because he caved, in their mind, the last time on the government shutdown, he doesn't like having poll numbers that are at 20-year, 30-year lows. So he's trying. I don't think he's successful, but he's trying. All right, as we wrap up, I know I've been bringing it up all morning. This is what the New York Post, wrap-up hour number 1, what the Post said. As if President Joe Biden's COVID stimulus checks weren't bad enough, his successor is floating the idea of tariff rebates when Uncle Sam is already $37 trillion in the hole. President Trump, whose 2020 checks at least had the justification of keeping the economy going despite the lockdowns, last week said he considered $2,000 tariff dividend checks for every American family, since tariff revenues are going to be over $1 trillion a year. At least he also said that paying down the national debt is the number one priority. In some very different world, tariff rebates might make some sense, but the recent precedent already have the nation started down the road of every new pres sending out free money checks. That's a habit Washington must break. We'd let the president's latest musing pass, except he said it before after the Treasury took in $64 billion in tariff revenue during the first 3 months since Liberation Day. And that followed talk of a Doge dividend, which happily has since died out. But cynical politicians across America have seized on the gimmick. As, for instance, here in New York, Governor Hochul is sending out checks of $400 to families on the theory it will help her win re-election next year, even as the state is staring at a multi-billion-dollar budget hole starting next year. Bribing the voters with their own money is an insult, of course, and bribing some of them at the expense of other taxpayers is a recipe for ruin. In D.C. or Albany, any and all found money should go to paying down debts run up in spending sprees of the last 5 years, or to cutting the tax rates that are still too high. Trump's already addressing the affordability crisis with pro-growth policies to let Americans earn more and to lower their energy bill. Keep that up, sir. You move us toward a future where every fewer people need government checks to get by. I think it means where fewer people need government checks to get by. So your thoughts on that as we wrap up. Hour number 1, stay with us. Hour number 2, mere moments away. We're going to hear from the Corning Rotary Club here in just a little bit. Stay with us. And welcome to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. All right, as I said, the Corning Rotary will be joining us in a little bit. Oh, I know I've been doing this. We've been receiving some donations. If you would be so kind, we'd really love to have you help us, the Big Fox team, with our Walk to End Alzheimer's, which takes place this Saturday. We're raising funds right now, and we're doing very, very great because of you, the viewer. But if you haven't had an opportunity, I'm going to promote this all week because we're really proud what we accomplished last year, receiving that medal, champion medal there. I know I keep showing it. We're really proud of the work that they do at the Alzheimer's Association, but also being a part of their walk. So if you would be so inclined to want to donate to that amazing cause, I would appreciate it. I know there's always something going on here on the program, so I understand if not. And I know we'll have the Salvation Army Telethon in a couple months, but I do appreciate everybody who donated. And the team right now is myself. You can see them both there on the Big Fox on that website. And Elisa was on the program numerous times in the past with her foreign exchange student, Sylvia. So we appreciate her being a part of the team. Dwindled down team this year, smaller team, but we're going to have fun walking Eldridge Park next Saturday. So if you would be so inclined, I would really appreciate it. All right. Trump promises across-the-board pay raises for the U.S. military while celebrating the Navy's 250th birthday. The U.S. Navy always stands for America. And as your commander-in-chief, I will always stand for you. I promise you that. And I want you to know that despite the Democrat-induced shutdown, we will get our service members every last penny. Don't worry about that. It's all coming, and even more because I'm supporting the across-the-board pay raises for every sailor and service member in the United States Armed Forces. Needless to say, that received quite a roar from the crowd, coming just days after Trump told top generals that all military personnel would receive a 3.8% raise. We're going to be building lots of ships and doing a lot of things that you haven't seen happen for 35 years, he said. We'll soon revitalize our shipyards with hundreds of millions of dollars in new investments and new people coming from all around the world, and they're going to build ships in America. We want them built in America. He said it will happen only after Democrats stop giving all of our money to illegal aliens. That's in reference to the shutdown. He also called Democrats a little gnat on your shoulder called the Democrats. So promising a pay raise and that they would get every last penny. Now, for those that aren't aware, and this goes to show you, and I had a nice conversation with Mayor John Buckley about this on The Pulse, and I hope you had an opportunity to listen to The Pulse on WLEA on Saturday or Sunday at 1 o'clock. If you didn't, you can find it on WYSL's website. If you have any questions on that, contact me. That number on the bottom of the screen, I can send you the link. But we had a nice conversation about the shutdown, and it's so obvious that from the beginning it was made to inflict political damage, because why would non-essential employees not have to work? Fine, you understand that. And they'll be delaying their pay. So they're essentially getting a paid vacation, but they don't get paid until after that vacation is over. So there could be a financial struggle. I understand that. But why in the world would military not get paid? They are obviously essential employees. There's no way you can define them as non-essential. So why would they not get paid? Again, this goes back to the idea that when it was originally kind of set up, that was a way to inflict the most damage, to say the other party doesn't support paying for our military. So I like that Trump's saying we're going to get every penny back, because obviously that they deserve that and much more. Because if you look at some of these bureaucrats, they're getting paid a lot more than our service members. So they may be able to make it through this extended government shutdown easier than some of our military, who unfortunately have to live paycheck to paycheck because if they have family or expenses. So it's goes to show you the politicalized nature of the shutdown from day one, from way years ago when it first started happening. War Secretary Pete Hegseth addressed a lively audience of U.S. Navy sailors for the branch's 250th anniversary, where he emphasized an America first and peace through strength military and blasting diversity, equity, and inclusion. He began his remarks to thousands of sailors at the Naval Station Norfolk, the world's largest naval station with over 82,000 active duty military on base and over 29,000 civilians. Calling the crowd the absolute best of America, the War Secretary said, "Looking out at all of you, I know you know why the president always says we have the strongest, most powerful, most lethal, most ready military on the planet, and he's going to make sure we keep it that way. This is the perfect way to mark 250 years of the United States Navy. You know, President Trump has made our mission clear. America first and peace through strength with common sense at every turn. At the War Department, it is the War Department, we're committed to that mission of peace through strength. And for the Navy, that means sailors, more subs, more ships, and more munitions for all of them. Navy and the Marine Corps embody the resilience of our country. Nobody in the world does it better than the United States Navy. He went on to blast DEI mantras like diversity is our strength. You're not civilians. You are different. Sailors, SEALs, Marines. You are set apart for a distinct purpose. Your diversity is not your strength. Your strength is your unity of purpose, your shared mission, your love of country, generation after generation, battle after battle, ship after ship, sailor after sailor. You have set the tone. He went on to reference John Paul Jones, the Scottish-born naval officer who is also known as the father of the American Navy. The story began with John Paul Jones when he declared, "I have not yet begun to fight." Today, we have a commander-in-chief who fights for all of you and fights for our country every single day. The commander-in-chief who guarantees that you, the war fighters, have everything you need on the high seas to deter our enemies and, if necessary, win overwhelmingly. We have a president who appreciates your dedication. He appreciates your service, your sacrifice, and that of your family as well. As I always tell every single service member, every sailor I see, he has your back. So war fighters, on behalf of everyone at the Department of War, thank you. Thank you for your commitment to America's Navy. You stand the watch 250 years later. God bless you, and may God bless our great republic, God speed. Now, Charlemagne, and he comes up a lot. He's a radio host. He comes up a lot, and you never know. You know, sometimes he's far left. Sometimes he, gives the benefit of the doubt to Republicans. I thought this was interesting. He is a liberal podcaster. There's no doubt. I don't think anything's changed there. But every once in a while, he'll agree with something, the Republicans do. It's rare. But on a recent podcast called Brilliant Idiots, co-host Andrew Scholes and Charlemagne said he is 100% on board with ending fat generals. Quote, "I agree with Pete on the fat admirals and generals, though," Charlemagne said. "I don't want no fat admirals and generals." Schultz said there's one standard. It's not amended with a standard. It's just one standard. And Charlemagne said you can't have the strongest military in the world and not look the part, bro. There you go. So not everybody is totally against it. All right, let's talk about the Texas National Guard troops being sent to Illinois as anti-ICE protests continue to rage. J.B. Pritzker not overly happy about this. The governor now, he started off with some this is early on in the resistance, very nasty rhetoric, violent type rhetoric, because he wants to run for president. That's clear, crystal clear. So he wants to be seen as resistance, and that's why he said, because to win a primary in the Democrat Party, you're going to have to be very extreme. Look at Mamdani. You're going to almost have to be a socialist. You're going to have to say horrible, despicable things about Trump and MAGA, even borderline on a violent rhetoric. But I'll continue with what's happening. President Trump is deploying 400 Texas National Guards to Illinois, Oregon, and other states as swarms of anti-ICE protesters continue to clash with federal agents. The Illinois Democrat blasted Trump's invasion hours after the president mobilized 300 California National Guard members to Portland, where unrest has raged for over 100 consecutive days outside an immigration detention center. We learned that local police have been told to stand down and not help these ICE agents, even if it does get violent. Pritzker said the plan defies his wishes, adding that the federal officials haven't reached out to coordinate or discuss the deployment. Quote, "We must now start calling this what it is, Trump's invasion." He encouraged every American to speak up and help stop the madness. It started with federal guards. It will soon include deploying federalized members of the Illinois National Guard against our wishes, and it will not involve sending in another state's military troops. I call on Texas Governor Abbott to immediately withdraw any support for this decision and refuse to coordinate. Pritzker condemned Trump for wanting to send active duty troops to a sovereign state without permission, that he was using the National Guard as political props. Now, we've had a violent wave of anti-ICE protests intensified in the Windy City since ICE launched Operation Midway Blitz last month, if you recall. an initiative aimed at targeting criminal illegal immigrants who feds say flock to Chicago to seek protection under the state's sanctuary policies. The immigration enforcement operation has drawn pushback from Pritzker, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and other prominent local Democrats. But despite the objection, demonstrators have escalated in recent days, with protesters using vehicles to attack ICE agents in the Chicago area. Agents were targeted twice in such a manner one day earlier this week. U.S. Border Patrol agents patrolling Chicago's South Side on Saturday also opened fire and wounded a woman, later found to be armed, after an angry mob attempted to attack the federal officers. More than a dozen protesters have been arrested near the ICE facility since Friday. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who touched down in Illinois Friday morning, called Chicago a war zone during an interview Sunday with Fox and Friends Weekend. Noem also alleged that Chicago has been blocking federal law enforcement, including Border Patrol and ICE officers, from using public restrooms in the city. She was denied entry into a Broadview government building after asking to use the restroom, she said on Friday. Now, Chicago police are ordered to ignore the Border Patrol agents, even if they're pleading for help while surrounded by an angry mob of protesters. The group of agents were conducting a routine patrol in the city's South Side on Saturday when they were attacked and rammed by vehicles and boxed in by 10 cars, according to the Department of Homeland Security. The agents were on patrol about 15 miles from the anti-ICE protest that had been simmering for several days outside the ICE processing center in Chicago's suburb of Broadview when the attack began. Once they attempted to flee their trapped vehicle, a woman, later found to be toting a semi-automatic weapon, attempted to run the officers down, but was shot by police. Local cops were initially ready to help the agents, but get this, were ordered to stand down by the chief of patrol, according to a shocking dispatch audio transmission. Quote, younger male Hispanic wearing all black, wanted for the hit and run. This guy fled from the scene, a female dispatcher blares. When the offending vehicle crashed, they ran the federal agent off the road. They fled on foot westbound. A male voice then comes on the radio channel telling the dispatcher to direct officers to head to the scene and stay put a few blocks away and await further instruction. A few seconds later, the male voice is heard again saying tersely, per the chief of patrol, clear everybody out. We're not responding over there. A male officer responded over the sound of sirens wailing in the background, saying, we're going to clear out as soon as we can. We're like blocked in over here, so we're going to do the best we can to get out of here as soon as we can. An internal department memo sent to Chicago cops and obtained by Fox News said, please, Chief of Patrol, no units will respond to this as related from, and it gives a whole bunch of numbers. Caller is one of approximately 30 armed patrol agents, ICE, who are being surrounded by a large crowd of people requesting CPD. The Chicago Police Department disputed the claim, saying its officers were on the scene. To clarify misinformation currently circulated, CPD officers did in fact respond to the shooting scene involving federal authorities on Saturday to maintain public safety and traffic control. The Chicago Police Department will always respond to anyone who's being attacked or is under the threat of physical harm. For incidents involving federal immigration enforcement, CPD supervisors will respond to the scene and determine the appropriate course of action in accordance with city law. Sounds as if, well, Kristi Noem said today in Chicago, members of our brave law enforcement were attacked, rammed, and boxed in by 10 vehicles, including an attacker with a semi-automatic weapon. Now, the National Police Union calls Chicago's refusal to help ICE agents a shocking violation of their duty. President of the National Fraternal Order of Police and Illinois State FOP expressed shock at reports that the Chicago Chief of Patrol directed officers not to assist U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement as they were surrounded by protesters on Saturday. Quote, details are still emerging, but it appears that officers from the Chicago Police Department were ordered not to assist a group of ICE agents while they were physically threatened by what appeared to be an angry mob. Let me be clear, both the National FOP and the Illinois FOP believe that when an officer calls for assistance, you answer no matter what. So there we are. I have to take a short break. I realize I'm running late. We've got the Corning Rotary coming up a little bit later on, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A couple of comments from viewers. First up, a country run by a bank will always be in debt. A country run by a big pharma will never be healthy. A country without justice will be run by criminals. A country run by Democrats will always put others ahead of the people. Thank you very much. A different comment here. I have to wonder how much of the rabble-rousers in Chicago were also in L.A. We need pictures of them. That's a good point. I think there are some pictures online. But we also have, so that's in Illinois. In Portland, a federal judge, as I mentioned earlier at the 6 o'clock hour, a federal judge blocked Trump's efforts to deploy National Guard troops into Portland in a late-night decision on Sunday. Karen Immergut, the U.S. District Judge, ruled the action was unlawful and unconstitutional, issuing an emergency temporary restraining order to halt the deployment of California's National Guard. The order also bars the use of troops from any other state or Washington, D.C. So that was breaking yesterday. Miranda Devine, I know I've already got to go to another break, but Miranda Devine said a federal judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking Trump from sending Oregon's National Guard to Portland to defend. So these are two different instances. One was Saturday, one was Sunday. This one on Saturday was an Obama-appointed district judge, Michael Simon. He was convicted by lawyers, or was convinced by lawyers for Oregon State that the attacks were peaceful. This flies in the face of footage from Fox News and citizen journalists chronicling violence every night as Antifa mobs hurl rocks at federal agents and their vehicles, assault journalists, and block traffic while Portland police stand by. This is another example of the peaceful protest, mostly peaceful protests that the media always lie with. In fact, Portland police are doing more than nothing. They have been filmed actively gathering complaints from Antifa thugs who claim they were maced or roughed up by federal agents. That's what's happening in Portland. When called for backup, these pretend cops respond that they don't have the resources, according to court documents. After citizen journalist Katie Daviscourt was given a black eye by an Antifa type who attacked her with a flagpole last week, Portland police ignored her calls to arrest her assailant. But the next night, they arrested her colleague, Nick Sorter, and charged him with disorderly conduct after he got into a one-sided scuffle with an aggressive group of Black Bloc militants who pushed him to the ground and broke his camera. After spending the night in a cell, Sorter told Fox News that the Portland jail was weirdly empty because they don't actually arrest criminals around here, just people like me that report on what's actually happening on the ground. If what I was doing was disorderly, what do you call people with megaphones at 3 a.m. lighting fires in the middle of the street? Under orders from the Democrats who run the city, there's no question that Portland cops are taking sides against the federal government, even as Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has revealed that her officers are being treated with doxing campaigns, or threatened with doxing campaigns, and even $10,000 bounties to kill them. This is why President Trump ordered troops in Portland. He has now bypassed Judge Simon's ruling by deploying California National Guard troops instead, only to prompt yet another Democrat lawsuit, this time from Governor Newsom. It shouldn't be this hard for the president to do the job the American people voted him to do, but that's what these activist judges have become. I know Gavin Newsom was taking like a victory lap on this, again, showing that they're on the side of the criminal and the rioters and the people that are destroying property. J.B. Pritzker's shown it, Gavin Newsom, and others, while Trump is saying, I was voted by the American people overwhelmingly with the popular vote, the Electoral College, and I'm here to protect public safety. And the Newsoms and the J.B. Pritzkers of the world are saying that they are happy to be on the opposite side of that. Now, when we come back, we're going to hear from Corning Rotary. We look forward to talking with them about their upcoming October feast. We do have a couple New York State issues. We're going to probably have to rush through some things as we normally do because we're already running short on time. But I do want to talk government shutdown, not that there's a lot there. A few things here about Mamadani and some other issues if we have the opportunity. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. And we will be back with Frankly Speaking right after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horsets. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hagan. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio this morning, we have Stu Samus with the Rotary. Hey, welcome back.
Hey, thanks,
we have
Frank.
you on here with a bunch of different hats on.
Oh, yeah. My favorite, I have to say, my favorite one was when we did the music.
Yeah, that's always a little more fun. You're exactly right. But we've got to talk about October Feast, which is coming up this Saturday from 10 to 6 at the skating rink. Great venue. We're going to talk about all about that, but this is a long time in the making.
Yes, it is. It's
A labor of love?
A labor of love. We actually started out in the beginning of 2024 with the idea of doing an Oktoberfest.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we thought we had it nailed down, and we didn't. Okay,
Yeah.
And we progressed so far, and then we found out we didn't have enough time.
Mm-hmm.
So we started planning our October feast. I'll tell you why in a second. Back in October, November of last year.
Okay. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
almost a year in the making.
Yep.
Well, 2 years in the making in a way. Yeah.
You're right.
Well, that's. And do you think you're ready with the planning? I mean, you got to be at this point.
Oh yeah.
You've got shirts made, obviously. So you. But how's the planning honestly going?
It's going quite well.
Good.
We've got a very active board committee that's overseeing it. Myself and Andy Rochester.
Of course.
We co-chair it. I have to say, though, that Andy's leaving me in the lurch.
Oh, is he?
Oh, yeah, he's going out of town.
How convenient.
Oh, yeah. But I get even because this weekend, coming, or this last day, I'm sorry, the other day, yesterday, Sunday, I was going to be out of town, and I was.
Okay.
So Andy had to handle that on his own.
You guys got to work your vacations a little bit different.
Yeah.
But, well, you mentioned this, and you kind of gave away a little bit there. So it was Oktoberfest, now it's Oktober Feast. Why the name change?
Well, the name change came about, again, with this long planning cycle and everything. Working with Kevin Peterson from Explore Steuben.
Oh, yeah, of course.
He told us that 86% of the spend at an event like this is on food.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a good point. And he said, you get the food vendors and the beer will follow.
That's true. That is true. Well, I know that when I have any organization on and they have an event like this, we end up talking about the food a lot because really at the end of the day, everybody, that's universal, right? We all need food and we all love to hear what great food there will be at an event like this. Yeah. But that's not to say there isn't, like you said, there is going to be beer there, beer tastings and the like. So it's important to know over 21.
Over 21. Nobody under 21 will be admitted.
Mm-hmm. So, as I mentioned, it's a great venue. We had a Salvation Army fundraiser in that general area in the skating rink. Right. I think that's such an overlooked area in Corning that should be used for more events because it's undercover.
Yes.
It's perfect.
Yeah. And we actually have the whole plaza, though.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, but we're going to have most of the food vendors, all the food vendors and the beer tastings will be undercover, as will be the beer truck.
Okay.
It'll just be the few food trucks that we have that'll be out on the plaza. We'll have some games out on the plaza. We'll have some games underneath there, the rink roof. So.
Yeah, and so it's a great venue. You're going to have, we'll talk about the food in a moment. Yeah. Like you said, we'll keep people hooked for that. But you're going to have music, too.
Oh, yeah.
So, which is always, so this really does have something for everybody.
Yes, it does.
What a good idea. So why did the Rotary decide, when you talked about this in 2024, what was it that made you think, well, we want to do this for the community?
Well, several things. So like with all organizations, post-COVID, we're still in the rebuilding stage. And we do an awful lot of good in this community.
Oh, absolutely.
Not patting myself on the back, or the club on the back, but we do an awful lot of good. That costs money. And the traditional way has always been, hey, we want to do this, so let's go do a fundraiser.
Right.
Well, you can only do that so many times. So we decided we're going to go down to basically 2 fundraisers a year.
Okay.
One for the international side and one for the local domestic. And so this is our local domestic. And the third one is our Groundhog Day supper.
Oh yeah, of course,
Okay?
yeah.
That's just a fun thing.
That's
to
just
do.
more for fun,
Yeah.
sure.
So we said we'll concentrate all our fundraising efforts into this.
Right.
We looked around. We also said, well, what's missing? And okay, an Oktoberfest sounds like a good idea. Now, of course, Oktoberfest. When we approached Alex Hamilton at Parks and Rec, he was thrilled with it. He says, I have been wanting to do one. I just don't have the resources. And I said, well, we have the resources, but we don't have the space.
Yeah.
You have the space. So it was just a great combination.
Well, it's kind of a natural progression because we have Harvest Fest, then you have the Wine Glass Marathon, and there's other events in between, don't get me wrong. But this just seems like a great way to kind of, I don't want to say cap off the summer, because you guys are thinking of it continuing the summer.
Yes.
But you know what I mean, just this kind of, this time of year, and the fact that we've never really had an Oktoberfest or feast is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And when we did the research on it, there isn't one within 15, 20 miles of here.
Oh, wow.
So we're looking to draw from the area. We are having one of the breweries is coming down from Syracuse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And
Rochester. I'm sorry, Rochester.
Well, and you've got a laundry list, and we can read some of them. But I know that Cousin's Maine lobster that you have is a huge hit.
Yeah.
I mean, I see them on Facebook. I see line whenever, sometimes you'll drive by where they're set up for the day, and it looks like a line to get in the Bills game. I mean, they've got great reputation, and so many of the brewing companies. It's just a great opportunity to taste some of the beer and just have a fun time.
Well, our club president, she was really pleased to get Cousin's Maine lobster. She goes, I waited online for 2 hours.
Yeah, I know. If you don't order ahead of time, you're probably not even going to get it.
Yeah.
That's how crazy it is. But that's what I also think is unique about your festival, is because it's not, sometimes when there's beer tasting and things like that, it's a couple hours and it's done. This is an all-day event.
Yes.
And there's enough to do all day.
Yes. Yeah.
10 to 6. I mean, that's a pretty full day for you guys.
Well, yes, it is, because it's going to start well before that and end well after.
Yeah.
But we are looking at also providing games. So we have grown-up versions of some classic games.
Yeah.
Bobby Kay has been working with us,
Yeah.
of course, and they have a 9-hole cornhole golf course.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
I've never heard that.
Yeah, we're going to have that there. We're going to play checkers, where the checkers are about that big.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yep. And 2 versions of Connect 4. One, the traditional one where you drop it in, but the other one you have to shoot baskets.
Oh, great idea.
Right. And and several other games. So they're going to be there. We wanted to do axe throwing. Some of us wanted to do axe throwing. I was a little leery.
Some has to pay the insurance bill, right?
Yeah. I was a little leery about beer and
Sure.
And we're talking a lot about beer, and this is about food with beer.
Right.
So I approached Bobby Kay and said, well, you guys got one of those foam rubber axe throwing with us? Yeah, but it's booked that day. But we have one for snowballs.
Oh, great.
So it's like, okay.
Get us ready for the next season.
Right.
We've got everything covered. But yeah, so it does sound like a very full day, 10 to 6 p.m. So there's going to be games. Let's talk a little bit about the food. How does that process work? Did you go around to places you like? Did you send out emails and said you want to be a part of it? How's that work?
All the above.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things, though, that we went out initially was we went to some of the new places on Market Street and on Bridge Street.
Yeah, like Ella's Acres.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, Ella's Acres and
Homestead Baking. Yeah.
Yep.
Which, if you haven't had some of their baked goods, try them.
Yeah. And then Babes.
Bagels
and beans, and Giuseppe's. We wanted to give exposure to some of the locals
and newer
ones. Yes. Billy Spalding's going to be there.
Of course,
Corn and catering.
Of course, you can never go wrong with corn and catering.
Nope. My daughter's going to be there with Steph's sweet treats.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. She's cooking up some specialties. German chocolate cake brownies. Cupcakes, rather.
Cupcakes.
And Black Forest cookies.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Oh, we're making everybody hungry. Yeah, making everybody hungry. And I know she didn't bring me in any, but okay, that's all right. I know, now the questions get tough because you didn't bring any in. No, I'm teasing. Yeah. But the food's going to be amazing. You've got a lot of great kind of staples in our area when it comes to beer. Iron Flamingo, Horseheads Brewing, of course, Rising Storm Brewing Company, Liquid Shoes. So you've got a little bit of everything, and everything's covered. But I think the important question that needs to be asked, because we're talking about the fun of it and the food and the games, but what does the money go to? You mentioned this is to stay. You've got the international and you've got kind of the domestic, I suppose. Yeah. Where does the money raised go?
Well, our club has 6 focus areas.
Okay.
Okay. One is international. The other ones are literacy. Some people like to say food security. It's hunger. Okay.
Yep.
We want to fight hunger. Then there's youth leadership development. We do health and safety, and we do environmental stuff. And so that money goes to that, and other things like when we had the flood in Woodhull.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, we donated money over there. We helped with that. There was flooding in eastern Kentucky a few years ago.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I lived in eastern Kentucky. I have a very soft spot in my heart for Kentucky. We just wrote a check and sent it right to the Pikesville Rotary Club. That's so all the money went right back into the community, into their community. There was no middlemen or anything like that. But here, we have, as far as literacy goes, we've started a program in conjunction with Corning First Presbyterian and Surview Credit Union that we provide every kid from K through to second grade, a book a month.
Oh, that's great.
It's their book.
Yeah.
And then some of our Rotarians go into the classes at Winfield and they read those books with the kids.
What a great initiative.
It's a fantastic program. We do scholarships and things.
I know that.
We teamed up with the Cornell Cooperative Extension for the county to do ag in the classroom, ag literacy week.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah,
I know the assemblyman gets involved with that. And reads, that's wonderful.
Yep. He goes every year.
Yep.
So, we do, that's the literacy side of it. As to the hunger side, you're familiar with our community gardens.
Of course. Big success.
Yes, big success. The Kate Danforth Community Garden was started with money from Rotary. We have Jody's Garden at the Corning Community Food Pantry, and that's going gangbusters. And we're in the process of finishing off a greenhouse, which was funded in part by Rotary.
Okay. Wow.
So
really the list goes on and on.
So
there's a need, or maybe that's not the right word, but it's not like the money's going to waste.
No. On the health and safety side, just real quickly.
Yeah, of course.
Jen Mullen came to us with an idea of putting smoke detectors in homes where the owners couldn't even afford to put smoke detectors in.
Yeah, because you forget how expensive those are now.
Yeah. So she pulled together the Corning Fire District, the City Fire Department, the Painted Post, and the Irwin Fire Departments. And we funded that. I think we got 250 smoke detectors put in, and the city fire department put them in.
That's wonderful.
So.
A lot. So that sounds. Now I know putting on an event like this, and we're talking about the October Feast, October 11th, from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. at the skating rink right here in Corning. I know it's not possible, even though Rotary is a large organization. There's not. You still need volunteers.
Obviously. Oh gosh, we need lots of volunteers.
Something like this cannot be done without volunteers. People still sign up?
Oh, absolutely. And if you sign up as a volunteer, you get free admission.
Perfect.
You only have to work half the program.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's a great deal. Yeah. So you can find that all out. You see the website on the bottom of the screen. You can find. I see you can make it easy too to sign up and volunteer.
Absolutely.
That's the way to do it. Yep. So just before we go, what's the cost to people, and where can they buy tickets?
Okay, $20 a ticket.
Great. Yeah.
And you get the tastings, the music, the games, all that stuff. It's there, and tickets are available online.
Okay.
At the gate, And harking back to the good old days, Brown Cigar
Of
Store.
course, you got to sell tickets at Brown Cigar Store.
Yep.
That's where people go first to buy their tickets.
Right.
But I think it's going to be a great event, and I hope it's an annual, a yearly. I know
That's
the plan, and I really hope that it's a big success. Again, this Saturday from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. at the skating rink at Corning Civic Center. October Feast. Stu, thanks so much for being on the program. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Have fun at it, too.
Thank you.
Don't just work the whole time, okay?
Yeah, I'll try not to.
Okay. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you to Stu Samus for being our guest this morning. Tell us about October Feast coming up on Saturday from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. at the skating rink. Sounds like it will be a blast. All right, we got some viewer comments here. Oh, I just missed one. I'll try to get to all of them as I can. As you can imagine, we are running a little late, so this segment will be mostly viewer comments. First up, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Why is the president sending troops into Chicago and Portland when they so desperately don't want help? Cut their federal dollars and be done with them. Interesting take on that. I think it is because President Trump ran on being the president of safety, public safety, and security for our citizens, whether it's through illegal immigration and those crackdowns. I also think it's a little bit of the fact that these states have been so anti-Trump, and yet the violence is running amok. I think it's a little bit of the optics there to show exactly the idea that J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom and others on the far left are more in line with supporting the criminals than public safety. Comment from Ken, I like the idea of a limited tariff rebate of some sort to some consumers. I'm not an economist, but I think I understand tariffs. When a country sends us goods, the amount that the suppliers in that country decide to increase the cost of their goods to reimburse their government for the tariffs they pay our government is included in the price we pay for those goods. When we send goods to another country, our suppliers decide on how much to increase the cost of their goods to pay our government in the form of taxes. So our government has the money to pay tariffs to the country that the goods are being shipped to. So while there will be an increase in the cost of goods in our country, if the Dems don't reverse everything, if they get back in power, eventually the American people will monetarily benefit from the more fair trade tariffs in the form of higher wages and more work opportunities. So all that said, we should decide on a fair plan to compensate our citizen consumers that are under a certain income level for the increased costs that they incur. People above that level will benefit from wage increases and lower taxes due to increased growth in our country. Thank you, Ken. Two really interesting takes there. Now, according to a CBS poll, so we'll take it with a grain of salt, people feel that the shutdown is not worth it. That they are, for disapproval, it's about the same across the board. Disapproval on the shutdown, 52% Trump, 52% congressional Republicans, and 49% congressional Democrats. Again, it's from CBS. We don't know how skewed the poll is or how skewed the numbers are. A lot of times they ask more Democrats than Republicans. But are their positions worth a government shutdown? Worth it, 28% for the Democrats, 23% for the Republicans. So why isn't it worth it for Republicans? All Republicans are doing is saying, let's keep a clean, continuing resolution to pay the government. No differences, no increases, no decreases, just exactly what we're spending now. So it's not as if that's the hill they chose to die on. This is, again, pretending that it's not, that they, for some reason, and I know they keep pushing this even at the local level, that, well, Republicans have the majority. That's so disingenuous, because, or it's either a lie or they don't know government. Because with a 60-vote Senate in the Senate with a filibuster, we don't have, as Republicans, they don't have 60 votes, right? So that's why they're trying to misrepresent that. And the media's doing a good job with it. Now, Chuck Schumer invoked Jeffrey Epstein and the files as he tried to rip GOP leadership for the government shutdown. The New York Democrat accused House Speaker Mike Johnson of not being genuine about his offer to negotiate the Obamacare subsidies after Democrats stopped blocking their bipartisan bill to end partial government shutdown. Schumer called the offer not serious and accused Johnson of keeping the House out of session to punt on the fight to release files on Epstein. Look, Johnson's not serious about this. He sent all his congressmen home last week and home this week, Schumer said. How are you going to negotiate? Well, the House has already voted on the continuing resolution and passed it. So it's really on the senators' shoulders. Now, I'm sure they can be called back if something comes in the Senate, some actual deal, but I don't believe there will be. The clean continuing resolution is there on the table. That's all it will take. But anyway, Schumer continued, the reason he sent them home is because he's more interested in protecting the Epstein files and protecting the American people from the health crisis. So Chuck Schumer, this is going to be the talking point. He's trying to be the face of the resistance, so he's using all the talking points of the day. Nothing new here. So don't get too worked up. It was only a matter of time before he tried fanning the fire, if you will. The clean continuing resolution has garnered up to 55 votes in favor in the Senate during various votes on it. Republicans have a 53-seat majority in the Senate, and that's something that the media will not highlight for you, that they cannot hit that 60 by themselves. So they try, and I've seen it trickle into people on social media who, again, either the media is outright lying on this to confuse you and think it's all Republicans' fault, or they're inept about how the government works. Either one of those, not necessarily what you want from your media source. We got some comments coming in. Got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. We've got a lot of comments coming in. First off, this viewer writes in, Southern Democrats called the Civil War the War of Northern Aggression because the federal government was sending troops in to free people, protect people, and end slavery. Today, we're watching Democrats call the federal government's action of enforcing immigration laws, ending human trafficking, and protecting the citizens of those states an aggressive move and overstepping their authority. History was not kind to Southern Democrats, and it will not be kind to today's Democrats for trying to prevent the federal government from protecting the citizens of the states and cities whose politicians either refuse or are incapable of protecting. Democrats just doing Democrat things and Republicans trying to help their victims. Okay, sorry, I saw another comment come in. All right, Rick writes in this morning saying, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Rick. A Trump coin. This guy, does this guy have any conscience left at all? Trump coin, Trump on Rushmore. Let's all celebrate the worst thing to hit Washington ever. Have you ever seen anyone so full of themselves? Did he propose the coin, or was it somebody else? I just heard about it very quickly. That's just me asking a genuine question. Continuing, ICE throwing some type of chemical out of a car at someone. I don't know that story, but best part is that the car ate the worst of it. Jerks. Blew right back in their face. Is it true that Trump is using Black Hawk helicopters to lower ICE down to attack people? You know, folks, if you can't see where we're headed, you're dumber than Kennedy and Pete Hegseth combined. If you don't want to be under military control in the next couple of years, you better figure something out. This all has the odor of a mound of cow manure, and hey, go ahead and pardon Diddy. That'll take the cake. Is that being proposed? I had not heard that. Hang on, all you Democrats that work for the federal government. You're getting fired. Your Republican co-workers won't. This all makes me ill. Thank you, Rick. Coming from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. If it was President Biden or Harris cracking down on the violent cities, would the left say that they were the best president ever, or have they really gone completely crazy and lawless? Fair question. And finally, a different comment from a different viewer. Good morning, all. Let's give the media the benefit of the doubt. It's both inept and lies. Yes, that's the idea, that if they are presenting, and I've seen it numerous times on broadcasts locally all the way nationally, that the Republicans have the majority and yet the government shut down. That is ignoring the fact that the Republicans do not have that 60-vote threshold in the Senate because they want to mislead you. Jeffries called Trump's behavior, that's Hakeem Jeffries, unhinged and unreasonable. He was asked by Kristen Welker, let me ask you, because the administration has personally targeted you with memes through this negotiation. We'll show a screenshot of one of the videos. This was put out by the president. The president also called the Democrats the party of hate, evil, and Satan. Is the president someone you still feel you can negotiate with? Do you have that relationship with him? He said, this is Jeffries, that behavior is outrageous, it's unhinged, it's unreasonable, and it speaks for itself. The American people deserve better than lies, than attacks, than deep fake videos, and the president spending all of his time on the golf course. We need serious leadership. And we will continue to make clear, Leader Schumer, myself, that we will sit down anytime, any place with anyone to address this issue with the seriousness that it deserves, to stand up for the American people. Now, numerous, especially in New York, politicians have decided to not get paid during this. They will get paid at the end, but just like the non-essential employees or the military, they're not going to get paid. Most federal employees are not getting paid during the shutdown. An exception, you guessed it, members of Congress, their pay is guaranteed in the Constitution. Well, some, and we reported on this Friday, Big Fox was at the press conference in Elmira when Nick Langworthy visited, where Nick Langworthy, the congressman, said that he would not accept pay until after this was over. Also saying the same, Republican Elise Stefanik, saying she will not be taking her paycheck until the government is back up and running. It's the same for Democrat Congressman Josh Riley. Congressman Pat Ryan, a Democrat, also says he will not be accepting his paycheck. Democrat Paul Tonko told us he is unaware what he's doing. Okay. As for the New York senators, Kirsten Gillibrand's office wouldn't answer the question. In our first inquiry, we were sent a statement saying she would back legislation to allow for lawmakers' pay to be withheld during a shutdown. That statement didn't say what she would be doing with her paycheck during the shutdown. We asked again twice. Gillibrand's office has not given them an answer, and this is coming out of WRGB. And Chuck Schumer did not reply to our initial request. So there you go. All right, we've got to take a short break, and then we're going to wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Please stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A comment from Mark. He says it wasn't Trump's idea on the dollar coin. It's someone else. Have a great day. Thank you. Yes, I looked it up. U.S. Treasurer Brandon Beach, that the Treasury is considering minting new $1 bill for the nation's 250th anniversary, featuring the image of Trump, and on the back it would say fight, fight, fight. All right, just real quickly, a couple New York State issues. Chris Churchill writes, Hochul's checks will boost your budget and Trump's. Well, this is in reference to the inflation rebate check of $200 or $400 depending. As some people call it, get the governor reelected moolah. But what we end up doing is paying taxes because, yes, and I had people send this to me. We talked about it on Friday's show. Yes, indeed, you do have to claim that on next year's taxes. Speaking of New York, I have to mention this because you may not have known, and we are out of time, and this is kind of a fun way to end the program as we near Halloween. There's a quaint country home perched. It's actually on the way to Tioga Downs Casino on that stretch, and it is a bed and breakfast, and it's called Fainting Go Island Inn. You may have seen it if you head into that direction. It has again been voted upstate New York's most haunted hotel, and that's not the first time they won that, whatever you want to call it, honor. The Fainting Go Inn was previously named America's best haunted hotel in 2023 and 2022. It also made the roundup in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and 2024, never falling below fourth place. So if that is something that interests you, there you go. Locally, the most haunted inn. All right, folks, thanks for all the comments. Thanks for the fun time this morning. We also want to thank Stu Samus from Corning Rotary for being our guest to tell us about October Feast. Join us tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we'll see you bright and early tomorrow. Look forward to it already.